A garden of pure ideology.
Yeah, just your typical Super Bowl car ad.
Or a hilarious beer ad.
Break was over 15 minutes ago, Mitch!
I think you're the best ever.
I think we're going to be here a while.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to Filmmakers in Advertising. Today we're doing something a little different. This is the first in a series we'll be sprinkling into the feed over time. In these episodes, we'll be spotlighting the directors rostered at Cry, the creative, production, and post house that sponsors this podcast. The idea is simple. Get to know the filmmakers on our roster a little better. What makes them unique? Why should you hire them? And maybe even why not to? Our first guest is Michela Maria. She began by directing comedy shorts for Adult Swim, Above Average, and Funny or Die. These days, she brings comedic sharpness to the commercial world, creating work for brands like Netflix, HBO, Amazon, Google, and more. And on a more personal note, she's most proud of Heirloom, a film about her Italian-American family starring Isabella Rossellini, supported by a grant from the Russo brothers' Italian-American Film Forum. She'll also talk about her foray into feature films. She's got a really exciting one coming up. But ultimately, Michela's path hasn't been a straight line. She's a self-starter with a knack for carving her own lane. All right, well, let's get into it. I think you'll enjoy it. If you could introduce yourself.
I'm Michela Maria. I'm a writer-director, originally from the East Coast and working in Los Angeles.
Cool, very cool. So when you say East Coast, where'd you grow up?
Originally outside of Boston. It's a small town called Andover, Massachusetts. People like to say, oh, isn't that where the private high school is? And the answer is yes, but I did not go there.
Okay.
Very proudly went to public school.
Yes. Where do you get in your best flow state? And what is the biggest sucker of your efficiency and or creative?
And energy. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. For flow state, I have a really particular answer.
Oh, great.
So my at-home desk situation, there is technically a desk, but I have a walking pad. I have a treadmill.
Okay.
So I am walking all day. So I couldn't run on it. Like, I think the max it can go is like 4 miles an hour.
Okay.
So I couldn't run. But what's convenient about it is it can slip under a desk. Versus like a treadmill has so much like architecture around it.
Oh,
that would keep
okay.
that
I know what
happening,
you're talking
but it's
about
just
now.
a little walking pad,
Yes.
right? So for days when I'm not on set, taking
Right.
calls, pre-pro, making decks, things like that, I'm walking. I'm on good days, I'm getting like 18K. The steps are out of control.
Really?
It's like a day at Disneyland. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But the reason why it adds to my flow state. Also, I'll asterisk, when I have calls, I'm not walking. I'm standing
I
on
was
it,
about
but
to ask. In some of
Yeah.
our calls, have you been like taking
you
a
would
nice
see.
walk?
You would see
See a
if
little
I was
bob
actually walking.
here,
That's
yeah.
the thing. Yeah, and there's like a little bit of
I
sound.
give you
No.
permission if you'd like to try
Okay.
it out on a call. I'll let you know
But
how it
even on
goes.
non-calls, right? Like when I'm just sending emails, things like that, I'm walking, and I find there's something about the rhythm of that puts me like in a pretty deep flow state. Never mind the blood that is inevitably going to my head more than if I were just sitting or
Okay.
standing.
Yeah.
So that's like really particular. To
And you
answer-
can type and so do your arms kind of like bob and you just like
It's I mean, I'm not going so fast,
Okay.
to be clear, but I have like a separated keyboard.
when you say separate keyboard, you just mean separate from your laptop?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
That-
not like one for each hand.
That
kind
would
of
be
style.
crazy.
Yeah, because I've seen those.
Yeah, those freak me out a little bit. I know
Yeah.
like some post people have those, but
Yeah.
I don't know. That feels like this to me, which for the view, I'm not even doing it right.
Yes, for the listeners, you know, the
What do you even call that?
tap your head and rub your belly.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless you do it wrong, then you rub
Which is
your
what I
head
just
and,
did.
and tap your belly. But yes,
All that is to say that helps me on non-shoot days in flow state. I think what helps me on set in terms of being like in a creative flow is the thrill of that moment right after action, right? And just like the expectation of what could come, the optimism of what could come in this
Yeah.
particular take.
yeah,
I find endlessly exhilarating and gives me the energy to supersede some of the stress that can come with being on set as well.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So what pulls? What's a energy zapper or a distraction maker?
I think one of the biggest, I'm thinking about how to phrase this diplomatically. I think inevitably for folks that are on sets day in, day out, you know what I mean? They're not in the same headspace that you are in when you're coming to film a commercial that you've been thinking about for 3 months, right?
Yeah.
You're just in a different headspace. And sometimes there's a mismatch of energy, which means that it's my job to figure out how to share my energy or the client's energy
True.
with the rest of the crew. But sometimes there are some people who just don't want to play along with that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That don't want to get on board with the spirit of it.
Yeah.
You figure that out pretty quickly and then don't necessarily invite them back.
Yes.
But yeah, I think sometimes folks who are a little bit more jaded about the process, I find can start to drain my energy, and I just kind of have to like reverse engineer it and be like, no, actually
Yeah.
what I need to do is not let that affect me, but just like to hit my energy even more to send it back to them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think negative energy can be a suck as well. What's another version of that? I mean, weather. Let's just talk practically. Like when weather comes in, surprise weather that affects your shooting plans, that can be a downer because sometimes you've thought everything through, right? And there's nothing you can do about that. So yeah, managing those moments can sometimes be difficult. But again, it's my job to figure out how to source that energy and source a
Absolutely.
solution in a situation like that.
What about offset when you're at home or elsewhere?
Well, interestingly, I feel like coffee can send me both ways.
Oh, interesting.
Because I love coffee. I have a lot of coffee every day. But also if I just go a little bit too far, like if I cross that Rubicon, we're deep on the other side. And I either have too much energy or like my body has sent me into a crash. Then I'm like, oh, we can't do anything more. Or like your tummy starts to hurt. Do you know what I mean? So coffee can help me in both categories. What about for you? What do you think it is?
If I mean, this is going to be true for a lot of people, but if I don't properly move certain technology away from me, so my phone, if I leave my phone nearby me, even if I don't pick it up, there's something about it that's just like zapping
Thinking
my
about
energy. Like my muscle, I'm having to use somewhat even subconscious will to not pick it up to look at it. So if I can turn it off, put it in my bag in another room,
There you go.
just all of a sudden life is different. And that's a big one. And the same thing at night too. When I'm having a pattern that I don't allow technology of that level, at least in the bedroom, it's required to be outside the bedroom.
Yeah.
Then it's like a mini vacation every time I like get into bed and I'm like, oh, the rest of the world can't get a hold of me and I cannot get a hold of the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And there's like a deeper rest. I have a higher quality sleep.
It's a
And,
difficult intersection because I know I feel it as a director. I'm sure you feel it as a director and as a co-owner of a company, right? Like you are beholden to so many people, and it's part of our job to give answers. It's a big part of our job to have answers for people.
Oh, yeah.
And so to be able to turn that off when I feel a
That's
great
exhausting.
responsibility, right? It's exhausting. Feels like a choice to ignore my responsibilities, right? But also,
It did feel like that for a while.
Yeah.
Yes. But then I'm like, but I have to take care of myself
Yep,
in order to better lead. To
exactly.
better make those decisions. I've heard it said that, I believe it was Stanley Kubrick, but it was some big director. He said that the hardest part of the day was just to get out of the car once he's on set.
I've heard that too.
Because he just knew, like, he was his own little bubble, and he knew once he stepped out of that car, he would have 1,000 questions that would be thrown at him, and he had to have an answer for all of them. And so he had to, like, prep himself for the level of, like, decision fatigue that was about to happen. But he had to do it. He had to be able to engage in a way that he could be able to provide that. So, yes, decision fatigue is a real thing. And to be able to have that space, to be able to be in the right headspace, whatever you need to do to get into that so that you can remain on. And as you said, leading the charge and giving an energy to everyone around there. Is
Even if
really
you
something
feel
else.
fatigued, to basically fake it
Absolutely.
requires an extra amount of energy to fake it.
It does,
you know?
absolutely. Well, and that's one reason why I, not universally, but almost of the case, oftentimes just my wardrobe is a uniform. It's jeans and a t-shirt. It's one extra decision I have to make
There you
out
go.
in the day. And if I want to branch out and do something else, then I decide the night before and I
You
lay it
have
out
to.
so that I don't have to make the decision in the morning. I just get up, put it on, and then like, nope, I got to save one more decision for
One
set.
thing. And like what you're having for breakfast, coffee, all that
Absolutely.
stuff.
Just all that's taken care of. Every time I can take care of a decision on another day for the next day, then that's one less decision I have to make that I can then transfer to be able to hopefully direct a little bit better, be a little bit active of mind.
Can you sleep before a shoot? Like, can you sleep well?
Most of the time, actually, I can. Yeah, it depends. Every once in a while, if there is, which I guess that does happen fairly often, if there's a bunch of factors that I'm not familiar with, we're doing a type of stunt or a type of VFX or something else that I'm not as familiar with, then I can struggle.
I definitely struggle. It's not the falling asleep, because usually I'm exhausted because of some element of pre-pro, but it's like the waking up in the middle of the night, which is definitely anxiety related. But
okay, when you word it that way, then yes, I guess I have woken up like 3 or 4 times in the middle of the night, like, I'm late to set. Oh,
well,
no,
that
it's
too.
still the middle of the night.
For the wake up. Yeah, the wake up. And then, if there's some sort of tricky element that I'm less familiar with, that'll wake me up. I do think, too, my brain is one that is constantly like future casting of like, let me play out every possible scenario of how this goes, the good and the bad. And for any of the possible like negative permutations of that, let me come up with a solution before they even happen, which is like how my brain works.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah.
That's good. My mind doesn't go there very often.
Well, maybe you already have those problems solved. That's the thing.
Maybe that is it. I have found that shoots have gotten less and less stressful for me. Part of that's experience.
Yep.
And part of it is maybe now just doing more and more pre-production.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit to the annoyance of some of my collaborators. Is there any particular story that comes to mind that there was a big problem that either hindrance in the creative that there's a gap and or that happened on set that you helped problem solve?
Like horror stories, basically?
Something that was missed that then you found a way to kind of get around. Yeah, either way.
This is it. Well, okay, I'll tell this story because it's actually literally life and death, not for a human being, but for an animal. So it's not sad. Like I figured it out, but let me start from the beginning. It's almost sad, but not because I prevented it from being sad. So in 2017, I was invited to make a branded short film actually for Google. They had this campaign of trying to get teenagers more involved in coding, building software, computer things. Let's round it up to that. So they commissioned 3 short films that would have some sort of narrative, underscored that intent. I was selected to make one of those. I think it ended up being like 12, 13 minutes. So it was a pretty beefy short to be funded by a brand. And the narrative that I knew was going to be a sticking point, but ultimately is what they ended up selecting for my list of pitches, was a story about a girl who programs a drone to help her bird fly again. And her bird, who has a broken wing, is she like basically programs a drone and like allows that bird to experience flight again, which I knew it was like at the bottom of the list of pitches. And I was like, these first ones are going to blow their minds. They're a lot less crazy. There's no way they're going to pick this one. They picked that one.
Eyes are open.
They're very open. So I've worked with tropical birds before, is what I'm trying to say. I thought it was all going to net out because we had this parakeet, this woman who's actually worked on SNL late night. That's how I met her. Animal handler. She had a bird in our budget, could do this. We thought we were going to be shooting beginning of the summer and just a little bit outside of New York is when I was still in New York. We had to, for various reasons, shoot a lot sooner, end of April, and up in the Catskills, which is a lot colder than April in New York City. Okay. So that means basically there was about 10 minutes a day that the bird could be outside. Otherwise, if it spent any more time outside, it could be threatening to its life. So I had to figure out, after I had already shot listed, right? And then we're also moving the schedule up like at least a month, even a little bit more than a month, which we had some heads up on. But anyway, couldn't change the fact that I needed a bird in the Catskills in April. The number of ways I shot frames of a fake bird, suggestion of a bird, and then also like really maximizing the number of frames we had outside. I never thought I would think about birds so much.
Wow. You had your regular Jaws Spielberg moment here.
Yes, exactly. I had my own version
of the shark,
Bruges.
yes.
Yeah, exactly. So that was I don't know why that popped into my head, but it was literally life or death. And the solutions didn't require a huge amount of support and troubleshooting from other departments, which I feel like is probably where your brain was at. But
no, it's open-ended. But
the problem of having the client pick the pitch I didn't think they were going to pitch figure it out. And then the curveball of, oh, this bird can actually only be outside for 10 minutes at a time was an interesting circle to square.
Now, the drone thing, my mind is still on that. What exactly? I'm sorry.
I mean, in terms of like the actual plot, let's just leave it at computer thingies. I had someone who was advising on the actual programming of a drone. But the idea was like, we're telling the story of like this 10-year-old who is just learning how to code.
Okay.
This is branded content. Let's remember.
Okay.
She has this bird who can't fly anymore. And so she basically creates like a little airplane for her bird and safely like brings the bird on a flight over the Catskills.
So, like, and then you filmed that part of it? Like,
was the flight filmed in first-person POV because it was actually drone footage? Yes. The bird did not go up in the air.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
okay,
that's called movie magic.
Yeah, okay. Movie magic moment there. Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right.
We saw the bird go
right.
into the little spaceship. We saw it start to lift up, and that had the fake bird in there.
Okay.
And then when we're actually in the sky, it's first-person POV.
All right. So the bird that couldn't fly anymore got to
again.
fly again in the story. All right. Good story.
Good story.
What movies have you enjoyed recently?
The movies I've enjoyed recently, I really loved Eddington. I don't know if you've seen Eddington yet.
I have. We'll discuss that more. I wouldn't say I loved it.
I mean, it made me feel really bad, but from a filmmaking perspective, I thought it was fascinating to see the American Western, like that genre of American filmmaking interpreted through 21st century, specifically 2020 lens.
Oh, yes. Two people having some sort of beef and standoff, but in a form of 2020.
Exactly
conflicts.
That. And also aesthetically too, right? Like these super wides of a street where those two opposing parties are, running into each other, right? To have a standoff. There was some really interesting, like John Ford-esque compositions, like through the window. If you remember, like that sliding door that was in the bedroom. Never mind the desert aesthetic that obviously lends itself.
That is true.
Yeah.
I didn't process that.
That's okay. There's a lot to take in.
There was a lot to take in.
Which I think is kind of the point, right? Like replicating that feeling that we all had in 2020 of like, there's so many different narratives going on at the same time. And initially when I was watching the film, I was like, is he doing too much? And then I realized, oh no, that's the point, is to make us, to remind us of how we felt in those days.
Yeah. What are some other movies you've enjoyed?
Recently, I rewatched Shutter Island, and I think that is an amazing masterpiece. Not to have a hot take, but I think what is so fascinating about it is that there's some genre blending that is pretty seamless because it starts as a mystery, right? Where did this woman go? Yeah. And we think we're in that kind of world, and slowly the psychological thriller, am I crazy narrative starts to come in, and the mystery disappears, but not in a way that we're angry about because a new mystery has presented itself. And I think that is an incredible hat trick. So I was really impressed looking at that mechanic again.
Yeah. All right. How did you get into your directing path?
I mean, I always loved movies growing up. So I didn't know from the beginning that I wanted to direct, but I knew I wanted to do something with movies. And growing up in suburban Massachusetts, I had no idea what that meant. I didn't know anyone in the industry. I didn't even know how movies were made, but I knew that what I looked forward to all day after I was home from school, ate dinner with my family, finished my homework, the thing I looked forward to, the thing that I connoted with relaxation was watching a movie. And that's never left me. I knew I wanted to pursue it somehow, didn't know how I was going to do it. I think my entry point was, like for many people, the camcorder that I had in the house. And I only had a camcorder in the house by virtue of the fact that my dad's company had one that could be rented out for special occasions. So we didn't even own one at the beginning of my life. It would just, show up at the house like around birthdays or Christmas, would start playing with those. There was also in my high school, which helped nurture this, was the public access station for the town. It was just like in the same building.
Public access.
So that's how I really got to work with people for the first time. Of course, filming on these massive studio-size rigs. And then out of that community, I started the filmmaking club at my school. That was another space to take that same group of people, but actually start doing narratives.
So you made films there. Did you go to college for it, or?
Not initially. So I did go to college initially, but I was still, even with these early experiences, unsure how to make this a career and also not confident in my own skills to do it. I enrolled in Boston University thinking that I was going to do what I had planned for a couple of years to pursue, which is something in politics, actually. And I still had this sneaky sneaking suspicion in the back of my mind that's not really what I wanted to do, and decided at the same time to start taking some film classes at college, and then basically accrued enough credits to get a degree in that as well. So I got a double major. So I still have my international relations major. Whenever they need to call me in for an international crisis, I am maybe 5% qualified. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of creatives go through the same crisis of, hey, maybe I should be prepped for a backup plan. I didn't feel like I could put all of my proverbial eggs in the filmmaking basket. So wanted to make sure I had another degree as well, which is ultimately misguided, but fear can be compelling.
How do you think those interests overlap, or do they?
I think there's some overlap. I think, one, you need to be a good communicator in both cases. You need to be able to talk to people. Plenty of people have done well in both categories without that skill, but I find it helpful.
Yes, no, definitely.
I also think, relatedly, you have to be able to proliferate, let's call it policy for now, through multiple different departments. And that, obviously carries over when you're proliferating direction through multiple different departments. And I also think, too, at the base of my interest in politics was the love of people, and their stories, which is exactly why I was interested in film at the same time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Once I graduated, I felt a lot more confident than I did when I went in. Not only did I have the degree behind me, but I had a couple of shorts that I had made in college that had made me feel pretty good. I had also made a couple of shorts in the midst of the film program. And then just as I was finishing up at Boston University, I had a part-time job working for the Boston Globe. And they had obviously it's traditionally a newspaper, but they also had a video department. And I was able to help them produce a 30-minute doc that then was on ESPN. Had a little run about the Boston Marathon, the bombing had happened my junior year of college. So being able to play in that bigger league outside of university, again, bolstered that confidence. Once I was out, though, I didn't know what to do. I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to activate it. I wanted to direct. I wanted to make my own stories, but the only way I knew how to do that was to bring a big group of friends together on a weekend, put down, just a couple $12, right, to get something made and see what you can do. So after college, I just started directing a lot of shorts. And so they weren't even shorts in the sense of 5, 10, 15-minute shorts. I'm talking 2.5 minutes. And what I really started to bend to in that moment, again, mostly for economical reasons, was into comedy. And it was at a time I started to spend more time in New York. It was at a time when UCB and other comedy theaters were really thriving. Not to say that they're not right now, but 2015 and 2016 was a different time. And I started to get deeper and deeper into sketch comedy so I could make these shorts that were 2.5, 3 minutes long.
Okay. Nice.
What happened next?
Yeah.
Well, it was an interesting time. I really feel like 2015 to maybe 2018 was a real Wild West for short form filmmaking.
True.
People were going to YouTube and other online platforms to watch short form in a way that now they go to their phones and TikTok to watch things. They were going to YouTube, Funny or Die, College Humor.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even doing it super consciously. I was just trying to make shorts and funny shorts because I knew that's what people would watch if I uploaded it to YouTube. But what ended up working out is that molded really well into how it was being done on a corporate level. So as I was getting deeper and deeper into UCB, making more and more connections there, making these shorts and including a lot of that cast, I started to meet folks who were doing comedy again at that more corporate level, although they probably disdain the word corporate. So then I soon got folded in directing for Funny or Die, College Humor, Above Average. Above Average was and still is a vertical of Broadway Video, so the Lauren Michaels umbrella. So I was directing for other verticals under Broadway Video as well, including one called
Describe what a vertical is for
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
For our
So
audience.
a vertical is, I don't know, how do you describe a vertical? So a company like Broadway Video, which is famous for SNL, The Tonight Show, plenty of movies, they also wanted to exist in the digital space. So they started creating these different pages that would live on YouTube, right, that were particular to a certain part of their voice. So they had one vertical that was called Más Mejor, which just means more better in Spanish, but it was specifically a space to spotlight Latinx performers and voices. So they would, hand me a script and some really talented people. I'd be like, will you help us direct this? Above Average was an even bigger one. And Above Average was really a place, and kind of still is, a place to incubate talent for SNL. A lot of folks, especially writers, came from Above Average into SNL. And as I got deeper into there, I started to maybe consider late night as like an end game.
Yeah,
for
I was
me.
wondering if you considered that.
Yeah, and I pushed pretty hard on it, actually. I got to the point where I was invited to shadow on the film units on SNL a couple of times.
Great.
And, I think their pre-tape sketches are some of the best sketches ever made,
I
right?
agree.
So, yeah, for a while, especially because of the progress I was seeing in short form sketch comedy, I started to focus on SNL as an endgame. Started to get to know the folks there. Again, got set up to do some shadowing. And then COVID happened. And like many people, had an existential crisis in the midst of it. I think the last time I shadowed was the holiday episode 2019. So that kind of puts it all in context.
The holiday episode. What was do you remember the film that was?
It was Matt Damon, which was really cool.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like a Christmas morning sketch with Matt Damon.
Okay, yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, we have one of the DPs I work with, Lance Coons. He's in their A unit. He's been there. His first job was pre-COVID, and it was the Donald Glover episode.
Oh, very cool.
Friendos, I think is what it was called, and
Yeah,
it just
it
like
sounds
blew
familiar.
up. It's still one of my favorite sketches.
Yeah.
He says he got lucky that happened to be his first one because he was just kind of like a temporary. But then it
Okay.
did so well, and they're like, well,
Do
just
some
keep on
more.
doing it. And then he's also I think his other one that's become my favorite is the Grouch.
Oh, yes. I remember that one. And it was like the Joker
It was the
parody.
Joker
That
parody.
one is incredible. I didn't know he shot that. That's
Yeah, he
super
shot
cool.
that, and it's so gorgeous.
Yeah.
Looks just like the movie.
And hilarious.
And it's funny.
Yeah.
It's one of the best written sketches up there. I mean, so many tie-ins to Sesame Street and the Joker.
Yeah.
It's so great. It's
Yeah.
so great.
Triumph.
All right, so COVID broke out.
Yeah. So COVID breaks out, and I start to remember some of the initial rumblings that had inspired me to go into filmmaking. I think I had just before COVID, like literally early March 2020.
Mm-hmm.
What? It looked like there was
Rumbling?
rumblings, like emotional rumblings.
Okay.
I'll take it back, though. There had been another experience right before COVID, which I can talk about because I didn't get the job. But I interviewed to be part of the segment team on Colbert. And I went in and had this really great interview, and I didn't get it, which was not the reason that I eventually pivoted away from late night. But there was something said in that interview, which I don't think they would shy away from me sharing, which was they had an edict, which is not unique to them, but it's not what's the best thing we can make every single day. Like, that's not what the segment team was asking themselves. What's the best thing we can make? It's like, what's the best thing by noon? Because it was a daily show.
Right.
You had to have some sort of pre-tape piece. And for some people, that pace and that adrenaline rush and that choice to make the best thing by noon is exactly what they're looking for.
Yes.
But I realized hearing that didn't necessarily pair with why I got into this, right? I got into short form kind of out of necessity and learned to love it. And there are things that I still love about it. But the reason I got into this was because I loved sitting down in front of the TV at the end of the day and watching a movie, even more than television itself, watching a movie.
Yeah.
And I had seen how deeply competitive late night was as well. I mean, SNL has 3 directors at any one time for the pre-tapes.
Right.
Really, really difficult. And there's only a handful of other late night shows. So I think the pairing of hearing that, feeling the competition for the past few years, COVID made me stop down and think about exactly what I wanted to do.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It was kind of a great pause button
A great pause
on the
button
world
for
for us
us
all
all.
to think about what we really wanted to do and we're doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I will say, because I think it's important context, is that in the midst of coming up in the comedy world and doing things about 2 minutes long, trying to tell a story and make a point within 2 minutes, I also started directing branded content, which was kind of the first time I started working
Yeah.
with brands. And so what was really nice is those companies that I was already directing for, Funny or Die, Above Average, they had a whole department that was setting up branded content. I didn't have to go out and pursue those contracts. They would go get something that was like Honda branded.
Nice.
The Honda resources would come with it, but we were still making a sketch. We just like, it happened to be about cars. So it was this interesting time where like I was learning about the short form and starting to apply it in this kind of like hybrid way, which I think really set me up to start working in advertising and in commercials, because I learned, how do we make a point in 2 minutes? Even the form of sketch was super helpful, right? Sketch starts with the setup that has to have a payoff, right? We have to escalate at least 3 times, right? Rule of threes. And we need it to be compelling for all 2 minutes. So then once I got stronger and stronger in that structure, it was only natural then to bring in a brand, because I already knew, in my mind, was the hard stuff, right? And then adding the brand in was just a matter of weaving it through.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
So then that allowed branded content, partnering with brands. You've also done some commercials. Tell me about the commercial space. Like, how did that happen, and how does it vary from like branded content that you were doing?
In one word, budget.
Okay.
Right? Between commercials and branded content. But I will say the idea of branded content, people still use that word or 2 words. People still use that term, branded content, but it existed more in the digital space, right?
Okay.
So what I started to do around the same time was start to approach people I knew at production companies and at agencies to figure out how to work with brands more directly, because, you know, we all get into this to make really cool stuff at the end of the day, right? And working with brands usually allows you to unlock resources to tell some of those stories and paint some of those pictures in a way that something like branded content could not. So I wanted to basically up my game, and it only made sense to branch into commercials to be able to access those resources.
Yeah.
I started working with a handful of production companies. In particular, when I was first starting and making this transition into commercial more, I started working with this company called Sawhorse Productions. They're based in Los Angeles, but they would do shoots in New York relatively frequently, so I would start working with them. And then after I made my journey out to Sawhorse, after I moved to Los Angeles, I was able to work with them more frequently, and then met other partner production companies from there. So usually my way in has been through knowing production companies, creating those relationships. And then they obviously have relationships with agencies who have relationships with brands.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we're very honored to have that relationship with you right now. And
I'm honored as well.
Yeah. Just to extra clear for our audience members, because this actually took me a while to still comprehend, what is the difference in branded content and commercials?
It's a great question. So I think the clearest way for an outsider to understand the difference is that branded content may not immediately reveal itself as being put together by a brand. So an example of branded content would be, here's a funny sketch about a mom and her son keeps spilling stuff on his clothes, right? And it's funny because like first it's juice and then it's spaghetti, and then somehow like he spills like a tank of gas on himself. Sorry, that's actually very morbid, but
well, you did say
we're trying to escalate. We're trying
3
to
times,
escalate.
and you did, yes.
All of that is to say, then she might take out a Tide to Go pen, right? And somehow the Tide to Go takes up all the motor oil that is spilled over her son, saves the day, right? So it's threaded a little bit more in a more nuanced way, I would say, for branded content.
Okay.
And then a commercial, pretty much from the get that, a brand is involved. And that's not good, bad, or anything else. A commercial is something that we're more easily recognizable. But that's not to say that you can't tell really compelling stories in commercials. And it's the part that really compels me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
We had one previous guest, and he is a particular fan of classic advertising styles in the sense of reveal the brand right off the bat, make the brand part of the entertainment, and repeat it if you can all the way throughout the whole thing. So
I think we're actually at an interesting point right now where I think we're looping back to some of the tenets of traditional advertising because so many brands are looking to advertise in the digital space, right? Because fewer people are watching broadcast TV. So what does that mean? Now I don't have 90 seconds to tell you my story. I might have 5 before you go on to the next reel, right?
Yes.
And so I see a lot of those tenets being asked of filmmakers and creators by the brands of don't just say the brand within the first line. We're seeing the product. We're like setting up what this is in the first 5 seconds.
Yes.
Actually, even less. I would say 2 seconds.
Oh, man. Yeah. When it comes to reels, yes.
Yeah.
Maybe half a second sometimes you have to grab them.
But it's
I've seen it
interesting.
like, now there's like parodies of the thing where they show someone tossing a box off of a balcony and there's someone below and it's about to hit them, but it cuts away from it.
Yeah.
And then it just goes into something else.
It's actually very funny.
Yeah.
Like we're just being obvious about it.
Yeah, exactly. And then you thought that box would hit my head. And then you're hooked. You got your half a second where you're like, oh, I'm about to see a disaster. And then it doesn't happen. It moves on. But then it's like become a parody of itself. And then so it's just like this interesting.
It is interesting. And, I feel like just a couple of years ago, maybe just before COVID, like the reigning example of how to get people to pay attention to your ad was something like Dollar Shave Club, right? Where like it was used in a million meetings I had for branded content of like, how do we make something that is super funny and we happen to be selling something at the same time?
Yeah.
I think now with not just attention spans being what they are, but just consumption being what it is, more in the digital space. Even if you are seeing a more traditional ad, you're probably seeing it on your phone or as like YouTube pre-roll to return to some of those more traditional ways of making an ad.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. I'd like to know your process a bit. Let's stick in the commercial space right now, or branded content / commercial space. How do you like to work? What are your strengths? What are you known for? What do people go away appreciating?
Yeah. I think just in terms of my style, I think comedy is still my strength because of that background in sketch. How do we both entertain and thread through a brand story at the same time? I do think comedy is the way people stay on your video, whether it is digital or on broadcast, right? If you're entertaining them in a comedic way, comedy also has a ... that I think is really compelling as well, that if you have a setup, people might stick around through the ... to see what the payoff is going to be. So I find that like a really compelling tool to both use to keep people and also to bring to the table for brands. I think in terms of like day-to-day, the way I like to work is I do like talking to client as soon as I can. I actually like being involved in the creative direction if I can be to get a sense of the full brand story. I mean, nothing is worse than showing up on actually, I'll say this. Some directors like showing up on set and meeting client that day or like the day before on a pre-pro, right? But there's no way we are going to make something that is great for all of us, for all people involved, if we do it that way. I like meeting weeks and weeks out. Hear the brand story. Be aware of what you've made in the past for your brand, right? How are we evolving from that, continuing that story, but evolving? Helping to develop the creative together, I think allows us to be in lockstep once we actually do have script, boards, all of those things, because I know where we've come from before and why we landed here versus just being handed the creative again, a week before we shoot. So yeah, I think I really like working primarily with client. Like I said at the beginning, I like talking to people, both in a corporate capacity, but also person to person, understanding like why this person sitting in the client chair is there and what they're interested in as an individual as well. But then I also really like working with crew and working with talent. One of my favorite things about directing is taking a singular idea, maybe that can be summed up in a single sentence, and figuring out how to proliferate it to different departments. How do I tell a gaffer what I mean when I say we need to be inspired by the way this tube of foundation looks on the table? Like, how do I communicate that to a gaffer? It's not saying that sentence, right? It's
your
like
DPs allow you to talk to your gaff.
Sometimes. Yeah. I also like creating, a more camaraderie environment in the way that I started, right?
Yeah.
But maybe I'll say it to the DP instead, So there's so many different parts of filmmaking that I love. I love the challenge of being able to communicate, again, maybe a one sentence goal in a bunch of different languages to the different departments. So I really revel in that. And then like most people, there is something so amazing about seeing something finally come together that you've worked on for weeks and weeks. I think I feel that high both on set and also in the edit suite as well. Like when we finally find the moments that pair together, I feel like that high is the same.
Okay, so you enjoy on the commercial and branded content side carrying it through
Big time.
post as well.
Big time.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and I think what I like about it is again, it's going back to that, okay, we have a one sentence thing of what we're trying to do here, That's going to mean different things throughout the process, and being there to help communicate that to the different parties involved in pre, in production, and in post. It's a different way. You have to speak a different language every single time. So I see my role as being essential to be the translator, right? To be the broker between what the brand and the agency want and how I communicate that to my crew throughout the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a lot of our agencies and clients really appreciate having the director along and in post. So it's nice to always be able to continue to offer that. And all our directors particularly shine in that area too. So we appreciate that. Me as well. I think it's also because you take a similar approach to like the way that I direct too. And that is, it's not just a commercial. It's you're putting as much care and energy into it as you would your personal feature film
100%.
that you've done, that you're working on right now. Actually, I'd like to hear more about that. This is Filmmakers in Advertising.
That's true.
So we like to really dive into that. And so you are a continuing working writer and director in the narrative space, and you have a personal project right now that you're working on, right?
Yeah.
Are you allowed to talk about it?
I think I'm allowed, considering I'm in control of it. Yeah, and I'll say too, I do find that working in the commercial space and working on personal projects only help to inform each other, doing them in parallel. You know, I've heard some people posit that you can only kind of be in one place at the same time, right? If like you really want to do narrative, you better commit to that 24/7, and ditto for commercial. But I don't think it's true. I think, you know, the stakes at which sometimes client conversations can be, like, you know, making sure a client is getting what they want, has sharpened my communication skills in a way that I think assists me when I'm talking to crew or I'm pitching a project, right? Even to just a friend. I think those two things are in conversation and only help each other. And I would love, to continue a career where I'm doing both at the same time. In terms of the personal project, it's something that has been in my brain for a while, and it's based on a story that has been in my family for over 50 years. It's basically an unsolved mystery, an unsolved murder, if you choose to believe that it's murder, that happened in my family. It's called The Eel. And I'll tell you the version of it that happened in my family.
The Eel.
The Eel. E-E-L. The Eel, exactly.
Right.
But basically, to tell you the real story, what happened, my mom is first generation Sicilian. She grew up in a house in Massachusetts surrounded by 20 other family members, right? It's this big house. Everyone kind of has their own, like, little, it's been like partitioned into these little smaller apartments, but like everyone is eating together. Everyone is watching TV together. Everyone is in each other's business all the time, right?
You have painted the picture clearly. I
right.
see this
Everyone knows everything
richness
about everybody, and there's no secrets, except that the last day of 1968, my mom's a teenager. It's New Year's Eve day. She wakes up and she discovers, alongside her family members, that her grandmother has passed away. And the thing is, her grandma was relatively young. She was in her early 60s, hadn't been sick. There was no change recently. There was no sign of struggle. So it was really, really odd that she had passed away just like that overnight. But what made it even stranger is that in the couple of minutes after they found her grandmother, they also found in the oven, in the kitchen, an eel. And that's pretty weird, right, to find a sea creature in an oven.
Do you guys, was the family eating eels every day?
Well, it's a little less weird in an Italian-American family because seafood is really big in Italian culture, specifically around the holidays, and this is New Year's Eve, right? So there had been an eel in the refrigerator, right? But it was alive, right? It was kept in like a tub of water, right?
Okay.
Because you got to keep it alive.
I wouldn't. Okay.
I'm just
Tell
assuming
me.
these things.
I don't.
Anyway, last time everyone had seen the eel, the day before, it was alive,
Okay.
swimming around in the area it was being kept. The next morning, they find it in the oven. It's dead. A sewing needle spiked through its head into like a glassware container, and it's decomposing. It hasn't been cooked. It's rotten. And the last piece of this that like ties the two of them together is that in Sicily, it's an ancient belief that if an animal is left out to rot, it's a death curse. And everyone in the house is aware. It's in the same category as don't step on a crack on the sidewalk. If you break a mirror, right? You got to say some Hail Marys, right? It's a superstition everyone is familiar with. So everyone is extremely suspicious. I would even escalate it to say they're spinning out because in their minds, these two things are completely connected. And my mom, you know, again, a teenager at the time, is looking around at everybody else in the house going, what is wrong with you? Like, there are 10 million and one ways we can explain grandma's death, all of which are natural, right? This is not the time to be like dialing into these superstitions that have been around for centuries. Like, let's think rationally here, right? The problem is that she was the only one in the family who felt that way. And her dad brings everyone into the living room, locks the doors, pulls down the shades.
Oh my gosh.
And goes, who did it? And basically an inquisition began that is still not resolved to this day. There are still...
Wow,
I mean, eventually people had to be left out of the room,
like
but
a real life Knives Out, a real life Clue, or whatever.
exactly so I've taken that, I've escalated it even more. Who knew it needed more escalation than that? And have made exactly that, like an Italian Knives Out. Everyone is locked into the house until we solve this mystery. What I've also done is taken someone who's a little bit like my mom and made her the protagonist. And you know, in the midst of trying to solve this murder, if she wants to figure out what happened to her grandmother, she's going to have to ask whether she believes or not. Does she believe in the superstition?
Right.
And at some point in the course of the movie, she starts to. And that starts to reveal other secrets with the family as well. So, you know, to believe in an ancient superstition that's from the country that your parents came from is a question of identity. Right. So she's also grappling with this question of like, is she more Sicilian or is she more American as she's trying to solve this mystery? Yeah. So because, you know, there's a little bit of magic being weaved into the midst of it, there's a lot of magical realism in the film as well. So you get the mystery, you get the magical realism.
I love it.
Thanks.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be good.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. So yeah, I mean, it's really a performance-based piece. So I'm excited for that. It kind of plays out like a play.
Does it pretty much take place all in the house?
Yeah, there's just a couple of scenes. I won't reveal how that happen outside of the house, but at least in terms of the production piece of it is actually super contained in a way that excites me and means that we can use our resources in other ways.
Yeah.
You know, because we hate company moves. We hate a company move.
Oh, yeah.
It can burn a lot of money that way.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Being on the production end, that is always an annoying factor. There was one time I was doing a shoot in Virginia, and somehow we could not get around having a company move in the locations were 1 hour drive from each other.
Which on paper, you're like, maybe we can do that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And then we had this nightmare story where there was like a big 5-ton truck that, like, we didn't have that budgeted in, but just graciously the DP and Gaffer and Grip had owned their own stuff, and they had this thing. So they're bringing the whole thing, which I thought was really great at first. But
That's really sweet of them.
Yeah, it was very nice of them. Yeah, it was great. But their special GPS program that told them like where they could drive the truck so it wouldn't go underneath certain areas, like gave them all these wrong directions. And we drive an hour, we get there, and we wait, and we wait. Half an hour goes by, we wait. That grip truck is not showing up. We cannot start setting up, and we're just keep on waiting. And so
I assume you're trying to call them, trying to text them.
Oh, yeah, we're calling, texting them. We're getting kind of halfway answers, but I'm not really necessarily satisfied with the answers. Of course, just we're burning daylight, burning hours, you know, just every minute is so expensive on set. And a company move is just like astronaut. You just think about how much money it cost for that 1 hour of travel. And now it's becoming 2 hours. We're just all waiting around.
Terrifying.
I think there was an hour and a half we waited, at least, maybe 2 hours before that truck arrived. So basically we had a 3-hour break, but it's not really a break.
No.
Like people are on hours and things.
Yeah.
So I think the DP and he was there. And so we just kept on rehearsing. We kept on planning out all our shots. We kept on just, even though we'd already done that, but we just kept on doing it. And he showed up. I think what we had scheduled 4 hours for, we had like 1 hour to do. And then we did it.
Because you had rehearsed, because you had to.
Because we had to.
Yeah.
Yes. The rehearsals helped. But we kind of already had done that and would have done that. It became the not just what thing can we make, what's the best thing we can make in 1 hour. And
Going back to what we were talking
and
about.
The spot turned out great. Our clients were really happy, and
Good.
it all turned out wonderfully. But
of course, your brain spirals to what could have happened.
Yes.
Right? If it had never shown up. Right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Are they?
And
Did they get in an accident because they hit like an overpass?
No, they
or
never.
something?
No,
Okay.
thankfully that didn't happen, because that would have been a whole ordeal too. No, they didn't. It just, the map just kept on sending them weird directions, and then you got like stuck on a mountain or something, and you have to like backtrack all the way back down the mountain and things. It was just a very strange experience. Like, how do I tell the agency this? So yeah, it was a
Blame it
whole
on
ordeal.
GPS. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And thankfully, it all did work out. So
Yeah.
but
good.
that was a nightmare. It's always fascinating, the different cocktail of crew. And yes, it is nice when you can work with people you worked with before, because you've already gone through the trenches.
Yep.
You know if your vibes are right, not just if they're good at their job, not just if they have a good attitude, but just like that you work well together.
Mm-hmm.
Budgets are only so much, so you have to hire local crew, which I like hiring local crew anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's just better for everyone involved in so many
course.
reasons. But at the same time, if you're somewhere new, then you're working with new people. So you're like, how to make sure we get the right people.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's always that continual figuring out. And maybe you're going back to the same area, you can hire the same people, but then maybe they're not available. And so you have to do the whole thing over again and creating that cocktail and that energy. And learning how to, even if your working styles aren't the same, figuring out how to sync up enough so that the project itself can have the best end result as possible.
And that's the thing, is it's our job to figure out how, like, what is the translation process? It's not their job. Like, we're the ones bringing them on. So it's up to us to figure out, how do we broker this in a way that it makes it work.
Extreme
to be.
ownership.
Yeah, it has to be.
Jocko would be very proud.
I mean, going back to what you said before, I mean, it's not just a commercial. You're treating it like any personal passion project as well. It has your name on it, right? In some capacity.
Absolutely.
You're going to make sure that it works.
You said something very early on, which I think is very true for most of us in this industry, and that is you really enjoyed movies, you really desired to be a part of it, but you didn't know what that meant or how to go about that. Mm-hmm. And I had the same kind of experience. And then some of us go to film school, or we try to get on sets. Mm-hmm. And then some of us work in the industry, and then we still don't really know how to do it.
Also true. Also true.
What would you say to past version of you?
I would say trust your instincts more in terms of being true to the type of stuff that you want to make, the type of work that you want to make. I would also say to trust that my story is compelling enough that I should open up to people and ask them questions and ask them for help. Because I think for a long time, feeling like I couldn't take up space, or that I couldn't ask someone for a coffee to ask them how they're doing their job, felt like an intrusion or a favor that I was asking of someone that I wasn't somehow valuable enough to ask. So I think in the last few years have been trying to make up for that lost time, now that I've kind of found my value and found my voice as a creative, to ask people how things are done, because it's still an enigma. To your point, like, we've been doing this for a while and it's still an enigma because there's no set path. It's not like medical school, right, where we know the steps that how to become a doctor. Every path is different. Collecting as many opinions as possible, I think, is the way to do it. So then you can take a portion of those for what will be your path.
Yeah.
But I think if I were to give my younger self advice, it would be like, go out and ask those questions sooner and with more confidence, so that you know more sooner.
Oh, I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
Then you also said trust your gut
Yeah.
more. How does that
Trust your
manifest?
gut, one, in terms of how much coffee you're consuming. Just to have that call
Trust
back.
your literal gut. Nice.
Trust your literal gut.
Yeah.
But I also think I think I'm a very empathetic person. And if someone tells me, hey, this is how I think it should be done, I will always stop and listen to them and see it from their perspective. I'm very good, I think, at putting myself in other people's shoes, for better, for worse.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think that has been a great strength of mine, being on set, understanding what different departments needs, what clients need, being able to put myself in their shoes and figure out solutions for them.
Right.
But I think the dark side of that is that sometimes you can be susceptible, or in the past I have been susceptible to other people's opinions, even folks who have good intentions,
Sure,
right?
Sure.
But are somehow in conflict with the POV that I am trying to communicate in a particular piece. So it's always a balancing act, right? But I think, especially starting out, I could be susceptible to the pressure of someone coming and saying, hey, I think this is a better idea. And I think part of the learning process of trusting my gut is still being completely willing to listen, but have the strength and the growth to be like, okay, that is a good idea.
Yeah.
And sometimes going with it if it is the better idea, but also trusting that I had a good idea to start with. And sometimes it's just because someone is offering one doesn't mean it's the way to go. And I think,
That's great. That's really good. You can go back and tell my past self that too. Thanks.
It's a tough thing, right? Because if you're good at this, you're an empathetic person.
Yeah.
Right? And like no one wants to be
One would think.
One would think that there are always exceptions. But you also don't want to, I'll speak for myself. I think growing up, I didn't want to be the one who was digging their heels in because this is the way we got to do it. But to get an idea across, sometimes you have to. And in saying trust my gut, I'm not in any way advocating for a dictatorial view on directing. But sometimes the choices that you are going to make are going to be in pursuit of a vision and of an objective that not everyone has been privy to from the beginning. And you have to trust that you're still on the right path and that the stakeholders involved in that decision making are all aligned, even if everybody down the chain, some people there might not like that. So it's a real balancing act. And I think learning to be okay with saying no to some people has been a growing process.
Yeah, I have to remind myself that that's kind of the job description, is to be able to trudge through and make sure that the ship is actually being steered in a specific way. Mm-hmm. And that is my style too. I want to listen I believe the best idea and a good idea can come from anywhere.
100%.
And so I need to be open to that while at the same time keeping a very clear vision moving forward.
I think both things can be true at the same time.
Yes.
It's like best idea wins, film is a collaborative process, and we are steering something towards a goal.
Absolutely. One major thing that I learned earlier on, especially when I was in my 20s, I loved directing. I had those type of early films that boosted my confidence because of some at least small reception. But then I met other people whose creative style was very different than mine. They were like more pure creatives is what I would say. They just get like this vision that would like speak to them, the muse, and they would just know what they want and they go after it and they do it and they can just tell everybody what they need to do and they just have it with such utter confidence. And I wasn't that type. My creative process is very different. I listen a lot and then I kind of mold and I need a lot of feedback to kind of help guide things through. And then the more I got into it, I was like, oh, that's okay. So for a while I thought I wasn't like a good director. I just wasn't made out to direct.
Because you were sourcing opinions more than maybe other people would.
Yeah, more than this collaborator friend of mine who just had a different directing style. And then, I did. I learned, I was like, no, that's okay. I don't have to be a Stanley Kubrick or David Fincher type. Not that, they still work with collaborators and listen to them too. It takes so many people. But there's just a very specific vision that they're going after. And I realized I know some other directors that have different approaches to it.
And sometimes with consequence, right? That other version of it is not foolproof either. No. And I would say in a situation where you need to work in concert with other stakeholders, whether it's a brand, an agency, or investors in a personal project, right? To distinguish from brands as being an investor, right? Being open to that collaboration, I think, is a huge boon in those situations that it might, for folks who work a different way, might be a struggle for them.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. Well, and that's what I found out too. We had an independent film that was coming to the area and they were struggling. They needed to let a director go. And they were talking about how to replace the director. And all the conversation was around my friend, that visionary kind of, person. And I wasn't even brought up in the conversation at all. I was like, it's okay. I get it. Just kind of moving on. And then, but that didn't work out. A while later, things got even more crunch time. All this happened. And then they started thinking about like, okay, who knows how to work well under unideal circumstances and is not going to just be myopic in its kind of scenarios. And then his name wasn't brought up, but my name was brought up. And so it was like this interesting dynamic. All of a sudden things turned and it felt like it was like a little mini movie storybook kind of things where you're like, oh, I'm not even considered, kind of thing. And then to the oh, now the other person's not even considered because the dynamic has changed. And
Yeah.
what was important is now shifted. And it was
Which-
a great experience. And I did it. And
Yeah.
it was a crazy experience, but also I got to get up every day and direct, and it was wonderful.
Well, and it proves your point that there are multiple types of directors for multiple types of scenarios. So another reason to trust your gut, and not just in terms of creative vision, but with the person that you are.
Absolutely.
Being like, this is the type of director that I am. I know when I was younger, it's funny that you bring up like more visceral filmmakers. I felt like folks that had a quote unquote more visceral, slice of life style was like, that's real filmmaking. And I'm like a lot more certainly constructed. I love symmetry, right? It's a little bit larger than life. I used to think I wasn't as good as them because they could really capture what life was. And I realized this is not my own phrase, but I heard Peter Jackson say, some people are slice of life filmmakers and some people are a slice of cake filmmakers. And I'm okay being a slice of cake filmmaker, but I needed to go through that and realize, no, it's just a different style.
Yeah.
And I think part of the growing process is realizing it can all coexist.
Yeah. Well, that leads into my next question. Quite a good segue, actually. And that is definitely something that I've known for a while, but I continued to learn. And that is, as a director, it's particularly important not to be one that has a style in a way that's just trying to please anybody and get any job. It's to have a very specific vision that lines up, because people need to know, like, what are you going to be good for, whether in a collaborating way or in a style way. So whether it's collaborating and or style, we want to scare away the people and say, I don't want to work with her. We want to do that. And we want to attract the people that say, I do want to work with her. So how would you describe that?
You got it. So I think stylistically, yes, a slice of cake. I want people to enjoy every single frame of what we're watching together. That doesn't mean that we can't touch difficult subjects or difficult frames, but I want it to be an enjoyment process because, again, going back to what we talked about at the top, like I connote all types of filmmaking with entertainment. I really do. So stylistically, that means a huge amount of things. It's I really like beautiful frames. I like symmetry. I like a tight color palette. It's related to color palette, just talking about art overall, like a pretty tight texture palette as well. If we're just talking about the difference between like the curtains and the couch and the rug, like those all need to be lining up. So I like a very orchestrated frame, but then I like realistic performances in the midst of that and kind of like telling stories that might just be a little bit elevated from our normal lives. Again, so we can provide that escapism and entertainment, something we recognize, but it's a little bit more entertaining. That's aesthetically. I think in terms of collaboration, in terms of my way of working, it's definitely intense collaboration. It is commitment from pre through posts. I'm not someone who just shows up on set and then executes. I think I am someone who is equally good at speaking to clients and understanding what they want and speaking to talent and crew and understanding what they need in order to do their jobs and being able to create moments together that work for everybody.
Okay.
I'm a big communicator.
Okay. So if there's agencies or clients that are more leaning towards just stay in your lane, you don't need to talk to us, maybe not as big of a fit, but if they enjoy the collaboration and or see the benefits as far as knowing how you can, by sharing and listening through that process, be able to corral the whole project together to enhance the project, then probably a better fit.
I think so. And to tie it back to my roots in comedy, I mean, we can only allow a spot and allow performers to be funny if we are all feeling in concert with each other. Like there's no version of that where I could walk on set and just keep my headphones on and just like whisper to the actors and not talk to client at all. And that would get the type of tone that we're trying to hit. I think the tone that I started in, that I continue to work in, doesn't happen unless that everyone is talking to everybody else. So yeah, I think someone who's looking for a comedy director who also knows the environment that's needed in order to create that content, we can talk.
Okay, great. Another podcast does this. I kind of like it, and we'll kind of end with this. Do you have one cool thing? Could be
The one cool thing.
Yeah.
Very nice.
could be completely unrelated to directing, but
Such a tricky question.
well, one of my cool things.
Yeah, let me hear yours first.
It's been around for ages now, but most people don't know about this, and some people that do know about it hate it. I love it. And that is this program called Flow State. And Flow State is a writing program. So you turn it on, it takes over your screen, and you can set a timer from 5 minutes all the way up to maybe 2 hours or something. I don't know. It's pretty long. But the caveat is when you actually start writing with that timer on, you have to keep typing. And if you stop typing for 5 seconds, you lose all your work from that session. So it causes you to keep on writing and not think about editing as much and not sit around thinking. So the idea is to help force you into a flow state, to be in the present moment, creating, moving forward. So I first started with 5 minutes and it freaked me out.
Yeah, no kidding.
I couldn't do it, but then I started to love it. And so like my sweet spot I generally do is around 20 minutes and I just type and type. So sometimes I've done an hour. An hour is a little bit too long. If I haven't slept enough the night before, I could actually start to doze. But I've only lost work, I think, once.
But the compulsion to do this the entire time. So much of my writing process is staring up at the ceiling. Or I actually write longhand at the same time that I'm on the computer.
Amazing.
But if I don't do this...
Wait a minute. At the same time?
Like I write in the legal pad before I commit it to paper.
Like you're typing and writing at the same time? Or you'll take a break and you're like, I'm going to write on this pad.
I'm
then
oscillating between the two, one at a time.
Oscillating.
But like if I'm writing, a paragraph of dialogue, what I'll usually do is write it out longhand, like shorthand it out.
Okay.
Because I don't like committing things to paper. So that would be really hard for me.
Well, that could be one cool thing is combo writing.
That's true.
Handwriting and typing, oscillating, honestly, at the same time.
Or oscillating, yeah.
Which
is a different version of the separate keyboards we discussed earlier.
It is a different version of that,
This I can do. Yeah, I think there's something about the blank page that is very scary to me. I don't want to put something, right? I don't want to put something down unless I'm sure. And somehow in a legal pad, it's less...
Well, that's really strange because it's kind of the opposite.
You're right. You're right. Because this one is permanent. Yeah. I'm writing in pen.
I mean, Quentin Tarantino handwrites all his first drafts to his screenplays. So he has a whole method to it. And I haven't done the flow state completely, but it went from sitting there having like writer's block and or not getting in a flow and or typing a few words, deleting a few words, typing a few words, deleting words to turning on flow state. And it just like all of a sudden I would write out a full scene, just boom.
Do you have to, is it typing anywhere on your computer or do you have to be
in the program? So you have to do this whole like copy and paste into like Final Draft or whatever your program is. And so that part's a little annoying, but most of the screenwriting programs are smart enough if I do like all caps for a character and then right below it the dialogue, so it's just all left justified.
I'll get it, yeah.
But you just copy and paste it in and it figures out most of it.
Yeah, and then you can adjust it. Wow.
But yeah, flow state. I think it's only for Macs. There's other versions, online versions of it, but they're not as inspiring. This one's like aesthetically really cool too.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, flow state.
Flow state.
But yeah, there was one of my screenplays. I had maybe 200 sessions and I pretty much wrote the entire screenplay in flow state, copying over first draft.
So once you get to the end of the session, you can save, and that work
once
is
the
no
timer's
longer...
done, you can take a break, and it'll save automatically, and then you can copy it, and you can keep on editing if you want. You can also just open the program and open a session without a timer.
What always holds me up in writing is thesaurus.com. I spend so much time on thesaurus.com. I would lose in flow state.
Thesaurus.com.
Thesaurus, as in for synonyms. Thesaurus. No, it's thesaurus.
This is a website?
Yeah, thesaurus.com.
Thesaurus.com.
It's like dictionary.com, but thesaurus.com.
Okay, this could be your one cool thing because I don't know about it.
Oh, thesaurus.com is like a thesaurus where you look up synonyms.
Okay.
And I use it all the time for writing.
Where does the etymology of the name come from? The source.
You've never heard of thesaurus? Thesaurus is like a dictionary.
Thesaurus.
Thesaurus, yeah. Am I saying it weird? Like a thesaurus where you find synonyms.
Audience, let us know if you heard the source.
The source. The source. The
the
source.
source.
The
The
source.
source.
The source.
Which one are you saying there?
Am I saying it wrong?
No,
The
maybe
source.
my brain is just, it keeps on hearing two words, the and then source.
If I say the thesaurus, is that better? Because that's technically, the source starts with THE. So if you say the thesaurus,
Yeah.
then it specifies.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Anyway, leave that open to the audience.
Thesaurus.
Let us know.
Thesaurus, everybody.
Thesaurus.
Thesaurus.com. I guess it is hard to say and kind of the
Yeah, there's a
kind
lot
of
going
way.
on there.
Okay. Thesaurus.com. Actually, I don't use that very much.
It's always open.
Yeah.
My software.
I do the force click on Apple and then click on dictionary or thesaurus there.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, sometimes.
I like a deep dive.
Or I'll just Google it. Yeah. So I just Google the word.
And then they'll give you some options.
And then it gives you like right there, definitions
Yeah.
and things.
I think rhythm is so important to me that like sometimes I will just source other words to hit the rhythm that I'm looking for.
Yes. I think some famous screenwriter mentioned it. It might have been Andrew Sorkin, but he always says his stuff out loud before he really commits it to writing. He wants to make sure it sounds right.
Yeah. Then no one can change a word after all that work. That's what he says.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I guess he does plays too, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. That makes sense. All right. Anything else?
Yeah. No, I mean, my one cool thing is the thesaurus, and we can find out whether I've been saying that wrong the entire time.
Yeah.
And it's been great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was super fun.